Hello and welcome to our review of the Kindle Paperwhite 11th generation. We'll be taking a look at both the signature edition and the standard edition of the new Kindle. This is the latest model out as of late November 2021. Throughout the review, we'll be pointing out the differences between the two, and at the end we'll give you our conclusion on if we think it's worth upgrading from a previous version of the Kindle. But let's go ahead and let's start off with a very quick unboxing. We're only going to show you the unboxing for the Paperwhite standard edition because what you get in the box is the same on both Kindles, which means you literally get your USB-C cable. Thank God that they've switched over to USB-C. If only Apple now do this and stop being greedy by having a proprietary cable. It'll be great for all of us because that means you can carry one cable for your MacBook Pro, for your Kindle, for your iPhone, for everything in one go. Let's hope that they go ahead and do that. And that's pretty much all you get, that and a little piece of paperwork in the box. They no longer brand the cables as well. You don't get that little Amazon logo on the cables anymore. But let's go ahead and boot up. Now, booting up for the first time, I'm just going to put this in fast forward, this little section here, because it did take a little while for the very first boot up. But I did notice straight away that there was a stuck pixel on the screen, which was a little bit of a frustration. But let's go ahead and do the standard setup. You simply select your region and then you need to wait again. Again, we'll go speed this up a little bit. Now it's asked you if you want to set up your Kindle using your phone or using the Kindle itself. I suggest registering using your phone just because of the simple fact that it's a lot quicker to do, especially if you have the Kindle app in the past. Typing on the user interface on this, even though it's supposed to be 20% faster than the previous generation Kindles, it's still very cumbersome. It's still, there's a lag between when you type in a key and it actually shows up on screen. However, as you can see, I did exactly as the setup says. I turned on Amazon Device Simple Setup, and no matter what I tried on the Kindle Paperwhite, I could not get it to connect to my phone. The Kindle Paperwhite Signature Edition did it pretty much straight away. I don't know why, but no matter what I tried, I couldn't do it, so I had to go ahead and do it manually. It did offer me a free trial with Audible, and one of the main reasons it does that is because this edition of the Kindle has Bluetooth, which allows you to stream your audiobooks to wireless headphones or to a speaker, which we'll take a look at a little bit later on. But the one thing that you can't do is you can't plug in any headphones. So if you've got a wired headphone, it's not going to work with this because there's nowhere to plug it in. The user interface and the menus are still a little bit cumbersome. They're still a little bit slow. And to be honest with you, I usually end up just buying any books or Audible products that I want to buy. I end up buying them through my phone because it syncs perfectly with this. Once you purchase it on your phone, it'll be on your Kindle within seconds, same as if you purchase it on a laptop, which is a good thing. And saying that, Amazon actually have done something good here as well. I don't know anyone who's done this, but if you buy a book on both Audible and the print format, ebook format, what it will do is it will keep your position. So if you see we've got Goldfinch on at the bottom, if we read the Goldfinch up to page 20, we pick up the audiobook, it'll carry on from that exact same spot and vice versa, which is pretty good. You can also access your podcast. Any podcast you've accessed through Amazon Music will also be on there. To be perfectly honest, how useful is this? If I've got my phone, I'm going to listen to podcasts on my phone. The menu on my phone and the usability is a lot less hassle and a lot more rapid and less cumbersome than using it on this. But I'm glad that the function is there. Now, looking at the text, the dots per inch, I've listed it on screen for both this generation and the previous generation of the Kindle Paperwhite. I never noticed any issues with the previous generation, so seeing this generation, it looks just as good. The one thing that I will say is if we put this side by side with the old generation and the new generation, we'll see that we've got a lot more real estate in terms of screen space. This allows us to have between 30 to 65-ish more words per page, depending on how big you make the text. Another one of the good new features is that the Kindle Paperwhite is now waterproof to a certain standard. I believe it's 0.25 meters in seawater for up to 3 minutes. If you do drop it in seawater, make sure that you wash it with fresh water and you dry it out completely before attempting to charge it. The next thing that I want to look at is the Bluetooth playback. This is a function that I really do enjoy. As you can see, we've got a pair of Bose Bluetooth speakers at the back. Works the same with every Bluetooth headphone. So all we're going to do is we're going to grab our remote. Again, you do the same with headphones. And we're just going to put the Bluetooth device into pairing mode. You just hold on to the Bluetooth button. And at the bottom of the screen, where it says connected to, it won't say that. It'll just say connect to Bluetooth device. And if we click on that, what will happen is it will bring up a list of all the Bluetooth devices that are currently in pairing mode. All we then do is click on the one we want to pair with, and that's it. You're good to go, and you can start listening to it. Not only that, if you've been listening to the Audible book on your iPhone, this will pick up where you left off on your iPhone. I love that. Battery life is now up to 10 hours. Previously, it was 6 hours. But the thing you need to keep in mind is Amazon tell you this battery life based on 30 minutes usage per day. That 10 weeks, if you read for an hour a day, will go down to 5 weeks and so forth. Real world usage, we're talking about 35 hours of use before it needs to be recharged. To get the most out of your battery, I suggest you turn off Bluetooth and Wi-Fi when they're not required. And just one last thing while we're on the subject of the battery is the Signature Edition allows you to have wireless QI charging, whereas the Standard Edition doesn't do this. Amazon do sell the following charger, which is their own brand of charger, for £30 on their website. I tried to use my Anchor wireless charger that I use for my phone. This charger costs about £12 and it seemed to work just fine. On a 10-watt charger, it'll take 5 hours to fully charge your Kindle from 0 to 100%. Now, as I said, Amazon do say that the UI is now 20% faster. I didn't really notice much of a difference. The startup time is now 6 seconds. Previously, it was 9 seconds. Now, the Signature Edition can hold 15,000 books versus you'll get about 3,000 on the non-Signature Edition. However, I would say the only reason you'd really need to upgrade for the purpose of holding more books is if you like to download and keep your audiobooks on your device. Most people I know, once they finish an audiobook, they'll delete it, which means you shouldn't really run out of space with even just the standard 8 gig version. Your books, once you purchase them on Audible, are always going to be online. Even if you delete them from your phone, your Kindle, your laptop, they're always going to be online. So you can always go back and you can re-download them if you ever wanted to in future. Now, one of the most useful features I found on the new Kindle Paperwhite was the fact that you can now adjust the warmth of the screen and not just the brightness, which is pretty good because if you can reduce blue light, obviously, before you go to sleep, it should theoretically make it easier for you to sleep and have a better night's sleep. Now, the Kindle's Signature Edition will automatically adjust the light, as you can see here. So I was a little bit surprised when I turned off the lights in my living room. I've got 10 overhead little circular LED bulbs. When I turned them off and I turned on just my little lamp on the side of the room, I would say the light reduces about 50%. Whereas on the Kindle Paperwhite, the light barely reduced at all, and sometimes it didn't even register that there was a light change in the room at all. So I tried to do it in a more extreme environment. I took it from having full lights to having no lights. And as you can see, when I turn the lights off, it takes a few seconds to adjust, which makes sense because you might, run your hand over it or cast a shadow temporarily on it. You don't want it to keep brightening and turning itself off and turning the backlight back on again rapidly. So it makes sense that it takes a few seconds to adjust. It took about 9 seconds, I believe it was. And it worked pretty well. But one thing that I must also mention, I'm going to link a video here. Updating the firmware on your Kindle Paperwhite is really easy to do. There's a link in the description below, and I'll put it on screen now as well. But you'll notice throughout the video that the pull-down menu changes. That's because Amazon very recently, I believe it was towards the end of November 2021, released the firmware update for this Kindle. One of the features is it allows you to have a page turn animation. So I'll show you how to turn this on in case this is what you wanted to do. All you need to do is you tap the screen, click on the AA logo there, and if you go to more, you can see if you scroll down, it says page turn animations right at the bottom. If we turn that on, we'll now see when you turn the page. It's very subtle, but it swipes across. I don't personally like this. Let me just show you a little bit closer. One of the other features as well is that it now lets you identify your Kindle a lot easier. That is one of the main annoyances of previous Kindles, especially when you had to go on their website to download the appropriate firmware. It was a little bit difficult to find out which version of a Kindle that you had. But now if you go to your settings, you will see, if you go to device options and device info, you will see that it actually says Kindle Paperwhite Signature Edition, 11th generation. Now the navigate option while reading, it basically allows you to, if you click on the top, to bring up the bar, and what that will do is it will bring this up at the bottom of the screen, and you can easily navigate between different points of the book. There is a multi-view option which lets you see multiple pages, but I don't know if you can see that. It's not very useful because you need really good eyesight to be able to figure out what that says. Now, just a quick rundown of the usage of the device for people that haven't necessarily used Kindles before. This is a great new feature. It lets you keep your book cover of the last book that you read on the screen of your Kindle. I love this. I love how it's not just some random cover anymore. If we go ahead and turn the Kindle on, it brings us here. It will either bring you on your home page, which is here, and this is where you can see popular reading and what's new in Prime. I'm not actually connected to Wi-Fi at the moment, but either way, you can go ahead and download samples of books, or you can search Kindle for different books that you could potentially want to get. Audible results are also now in there. Now, if we click on library, we will see that we have downloaded and all at the top. So we've put it on downloaded because all includes the stuff that are in the cloud. Stuff with a tick, if we click on all, we'll see stuff with a tick are stuff that have already downloaded to the device. Stuff without a tick are on the cloud. So if we go ahead and we click on one of these, I'm just gonna, the reason I keep clicking Shakespeare is because the copyright's expired on this, otherwise I'm worried about getting a copyright strike. Once you click on a book, you just click on the right side to go forward a page, back a page, and if you look at the bottom of the screen, it says 1%, page 17. Time left in chapter, 5 minutes, and if you tap it again, it will give you more information. Time left in book, 131 hours. I'm hoping it only says that because I've been, for this review, leaving it on the same page for a very long time. And it will tell you your location, and if you tap it again, it disappears. You've got word-wise on the bottom right. As I said, you can hide and show, and this will just give you little hints on what words could mean. Very good for old-time books, such as Shakespearean books, like those words, then those I shed for him to take off. Now, the only other thing, if you click at the top of the screen, you can go ahead and if you click the AA icon, you can change your themes, you can change your fonts. There are different color fonts and there's different sized text. Obviously, one of the good advantages of the Kindle, there's different fonts here. By default, it's on Bookerly, so let's go ahead and let's leave that there. Next, you can adjust the layout. If you wanted to turn the orientation, for example, you could do so. And finally, you have some other options, read in progress, which you can change by just tapping the bottom of the screen anyway. You can show the clock while reading, and if we turn this on, it brings up a clock for us. Popular highlights, now you can display what people have most frequently highlighted. Page turn animation we've turned off. Highlight menu automatically shows the highlighted menu when you select a page or a text, which is very useful, so I leave that on. Word-wise, you can turn it off or on, and your pronunciation guides. So let's go ahead and show you just really quickly what one of my favorite features of Kindles has always been is you can go ahead and if you hold on to it, you can either drag or you can hold on to a word and then drag to adjust. So let me show you what I mean by that. If you hold on here, we can go ahead and we can adjust how much we highlight. And then we can highlight the note. We can keep it as a note. We can share it via email. And if we click on a single word, for example, it'll bring up the word-wise definition of the word. It'll also bring up the dictionary definition. Wikipedia, we're not connected to internet, otherwise it will tell us what Wikipedia says about it, and translation from English to whatever language you want or vice versa. So those functions are pretty good and useful. I especially like the highlighted text that you can do because afterwards you can go right up here, and if you click that icon, you can check your notes and highlights, and you can see, I've just done these randomly to show you, but you can see you can save these and then you can share them by email. You can go back to them on the page, or you can obviously delete them. You can also search the book and notes for a specific word or sentence. Let's just randomly type in danger. And you can see in all the acts and scenes that the word danger comes up in. So overall, let's start with, is the signature edition worth it versus the regular edition? I think only you can answer that, whether it's worth it for you. For me, if I was given the standard edition, I really wouldn't bother upgrading to the signature edition. Whilst the wireless charging is good, especially as it's something that I use on my iPhone all the time, this is something that you will plug in and charge once every month or two. So it really doesn't bother me that much. So I wouldn't really miss that function. The automatic light adjustment, I find that when it does the automatic light adjustment for me, I always go in and tinker with it a little bit myself. That could just be me. But that is probably the only real feature that I would get the signature edition for over the standard edition. So it depends how important that is to you. I don't think space would ever be an issue for me. I mean, even at 8 gigabytes, I keep my audiobooks on my phone anyway. And even if I was to keep them on this, I'd be able to keep my entire Audible library of 15 books on this, plus all the ebooks that I purchased without ever worrying about running out of space. And as I said, I'm the kind of person who deletes my books as I go along. If you do too, then that's not something you should really worry about. In terms of whether it's worth upgrading from a previous Kindle Paperwhite or whether you should go and buy the previous generation of Kindle Paperwhite, honestly, I would strongly consider going with the previous generation Kindle Paperwhite solely because you can get it for half the price of this, less than half the price of this one, which is quite a bargain. And at the end of the day, the previous one is still a good device, and there's updates, but they're not monumental updates. I will say one thing though, there are a couple of things that worried me about this. First of all, as you can see, the screen is not recessed like the previous edition. This makes it look a lot more modern, and I prefer this look. However, just holding this thing in my hand, it feels brittle, and I hate to say it, it feels tacky and a bit cheap. And I worry that if I ever had this in my back pocket, need a big back pocket, but if I ever had this in my back pocket, or if I ever had it in my backpack and I leaned against it, it would probably damage this thing, and that really worries me because this is my previous Kindle Paperwhite. I took it out of the box, put it in Amazon's overpriced £40 case at the time, and kept it in there for its entire life. And as you can see, when I took it out, a lot of the coating was peeling away, and that's really annoying. And I kind of feel like when I run my finger across the back of this Kindle Paperwhite, I feel like it's going to have the same issue over time. And if you wanted to pick one up over Christmas, Amazon do an extended return policy over Christmas, so it's definitely worth checking it out. Pick one up, see what you think of it. And the only thing I'll say, the only reason someone might not want one of these is if they still love that feeling and satisfaction of turning a page of real paper. That can never be replaced by e-readers, but overall, it's a very good device. It's a small update. If you have a previous edition of a Kindle, I don't think it's worth the update. If you are wanting to get one for a Christmas present for someone, or if your one's on its way out and you want to get one, you can't go wrong with these. They've done pretty well with these. Thank you for watching our review. Please leave a like and a subscribe. It really does help us out. And we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.